Hello, YouTube friends. Welcome to my channel. I am Summer Bybee, and I am essentially just blogging about things that I go through in my life and that I'm healing from and growing. And those topics include deconstruction from faith. I was raised in a Pentecostal religion. It's a type of Christianity that eventually kind of went non-denominational. I've been to United Pentecostal churches, and deconstructed my faith. You'll find a lot about that and my backing up into my channel a little bit. And let me see, domestic violence. I am a domestic violence survivor. This lovely scar on my brow up here and on my chin down here. Not to mention all the scars on my heart and soul and my children's lives from my first marriage. Childhood trauma, separate from the indoctrination, neglect from my mother. I was parentified really young, poverty, those kind of things all shaped my life and my view of the world. I'm sure there's a lot more. Yes, I talk about topics like ADHD. I'm late diagnosed ADHD. All my siblings were diagnosed though when we were kids. I was just the really put together one, that parentified thing again. ADHD, OCD, depression, anxiety, those are all things that I will talk about, and PTSD. Though I do not have a diagnosis of PTSD, it is very evident in my life as I heal from childhood trauma that was compounded by being physically assaulted in my marriage. So these are all things that I talk about, and I'm very vulnerable. I share very openly. I have learned though that this trauma dumping is actually trauma. So I'm gonna call it trauma dumping. So oversharing can be a way that we, I'm not gonna get into the psychology of it, but if you're an oversharer, there's probably a reason. And you probably have some things to work on. Yes, I have not been updating very often. I was really excited after I did a video with a dear friend after I became an atheist and shared my deconstruction journey with someone I actually met online due to sharing that, Harmonic Atheist, Tim Mills, and my channel got a lot of traffic. I am still one of the top videos on his channel, and I really enjoyed being able to share my life. I've always shared my life. I was an avid blogger since I was a tween. Because I mean, that was like the beginning. I'm 37, so that was the beginning of the internet when I was like 11. So I started blogging, MySpace, online journaling in my teenage years, and sharing myself and my experience and me reading other people's experience is a massive way that I connect to people and even myself. Like what I'm really thinking and feeling. Writing helps me with that, and even video blogging. So I want to keep sharing and I want to keep updating and having these mile markers for big things that I'm going through. It's my dream to write a book about my life and about experience. I would love to tell other people's stories as well. It's fascinating when our lives parallel other people's and we get to feel a connection of lived experiences that are similar. So I love to share my life because I desperately want to let other people know that they're not alone. That's where my trauma comes from. Feeling alone, and that I have to do it all by myself all the time. So when I get to share and someone else connects in my experience, it makes me feel valuable and connected. And human connection is huge, especially if you were neglected as a child. And the best way to connect was when you would do things for other people and take care of people. So I am one of those caretaker types, slightly codependent, working on it. I'm not a codependent. I don't do it out of manipulation, and I deny the fact that I even have needs, much less expect other people to meet them. It does make me a little passive aggressive sometimes, and I have a lot that I'm unraveling. It's as if I deconstructed my faith and then just kind of like woke up as a new person with no like imprints, like no like this is what life is now, shattering everything that I knew to be true and starting over again was the most difficult, devastating experience of my life, and I hope that I never go through anything as bad as that. But coming through to the other side, the freedom over here, embracing that I just don't know things, and understanding that I'm not going to find all the answers in one book, and that I can pursue things that are interesting and that move me instead of this one way of life and existence that I had to keep trying to prove was accurate, even though time and time again it wasn't accurate. It has been just free. I'm free, and it feels amazing. So as I went on this journey of deconstructing, domestic violence really, it screwed me up. And it's hard to admit that. I don't know if my ex ever watches my videos or anyone in his family. So over the last 8 years, I have cautiously shared things. I had the desire to just share, and I felt very stifled. I closed down my blogs. I was getting hate messages on my blogs, just sharing my story vulnerably, and I was being very personal things, personal attacks, things that I wasn't sharing in my blog. Not that I cared if people knew, because I am really very much an open book. So it didn't bother me that personal things were being brought up, because that was the premise of my blog. But it bothered me that I didn't know who was making all of these comments, because they were people I didn't know, and it was always a different name. And at one point, my ex-husband's live-in girlfriend commented as herself because they were in a fight. And because it was on WordPress, found the IP address, because it comes like attached in the email, and I tracked down the IP address and realized that it matched all of the hate stuff that was being posted on my blogs, my online journal, my WordPress. And I finally, at that point in my life, started to really protect myself, but in a way that was, because even though these things were personal that she was attacking me on, she wasn't doing it from a truthful place. It was very manipulative and harsh and without context. So we all know that we can share a perspective of something, and that can be diluted and delusional, where you take a bit of a truth and you exaggerate it, or you leave out what led to it and how it transpired, etc. So there was some really difficult moments after domestic violence, where my divorce and me being the open person that I am was essentially attacked. And I wanted to do right by my children, of course. And a huge part of that was co-parenting in a peaceful way. Unfortunately, my ex declared me his enemy, and that was not a possibility. But I always did everything that I could, bending over backwards, because I saw it as the best interest of the kids. So even though it ended up giving him a lot of control over the schedule and things like that, I just kind of let that be, because why cause my children more pain and discomfort with the fighting? But that's not even the most of, let me gather my thoughts for a moment. That's not, co-parenting has been hard, very hard. I can't really share where that is right now. And I'm learning what I can and can't share. Those boundaries, right? I'm doing a great job finally having boundaries and learning how to connect with people without info dumping. So one thing I don't really share particularly openly is the domestic violence stuff, because I felt so vulnerable. But I need to and want to tell my story for other women, for other men, for people that are in coercively controlling relationships that, whether they end in violence, involve physical violence or not, there are elements that are extremely painful and difficult to navigate when you have children. There's one thing about the court system, and that is that the best interest of children who are in a domestic violence family, where that has been a part of their history and story, even though it makes it a felony if you assault your partner in front of a child, right? However, the court doesn't consider that child abuse when it comes to custody and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, well, that happened to you, not to them. Can we just for a moment think about what it feels like when you're a child and the person that is supposed to keep you safe and love you just attacked someone they supposedly love and is supposed to keep safe? What does that do to your internal world? Because maybe you've been raised, spanking's okay, mom and dad are allowed to hit me to teach me a lesson, but you know that like adults don't just go off hitting each other. And now mommy is bleeding, and where does a child then find their security and sense of safety? Because for my kids, I thought as long as I got away and it wasn't happening to me anymore, they were safe, right? Because he abused me, not them. And I didn't recognize at the time what it was doing to my children to continue in a relationship with them while he hated me and vocalized that and talked awful about me. They didn't hate me because of that, but it definitely made them not feel safe, because dad doesn't really seem sorry about anything that he did. In fact, he seems mad at mom for leaving because of it. And that doesn't check out for a kid who's trying to reconcile what just happened to their life, because not only did it devastate me and change our family forever, right? It like split us up. I left. I made him leave. He moved out. And we divorced. So the children who experienced this, heard the whole fight go down, were literally within vision of it. My son, my older son, who was almost 4, he wasn't 4 yet, he was a month or so shy, but he has very distinct visual memories of of the incident, of hearing it, seeing mom walk down the room, bleeding, and then going to the hospital. So he has shared how deeply that impacted him. And it's hard to see your child finally saying the things he didn't think he was allowed to say for so long, that he's scared, and he's been scared for a really long time. And that in order to stay safe, he just does what he's supposed to and says what he's supposed to, but he's scared. And he gets therapy, and he's diagnosed with some serious diagnoses, and you realize that all of these years making him reconcile his fears of not being safe I'm sorry, I'm disconnecting just a little bit. I'm gonna try to keep myself here. When I actually talk about the things that have happened and the pain gets really bad, I often disassociate. So if I can't talk about something analytically and I actually start really feeling the feelings, I don't often have the capacity to decide to stay focused. I just kind of float off and have to try to get back to what I was talking about. Seeing my son in pain and knowing that the things that he's experienced through his childhood, the separation anxiety, the social anxiety, OCD, depression, suicidal ideation, stuttering, tics that come and go, that his little nervous system has been on overdrive his whole life. Being born into a marriage where I didn't realize there was so much domestic violence. I knew I got slapped. I knew that I got choked up against a wall. I knew that these things just felt like mistakes, and he was, recognizing that and accepting it, and I enabled him to keep doing those things, but I didn't realize it at the time because my partner, I love him. People make mistakes. We had been together since we were 18 and 19, so I had already learned how to take the blame for everything. It was just normal for me, even as a kid, being neglected and trying to take care of my siblings. I was used to taking the blame and trying to take care of everyone, so I wanted to take care of him. So if he hurt me, I thought I will just help him not do that again. I can change my behavior. I can fix me, and then I won't get hurt, and then he won't be a bad guy who hurt me because he's not a bad guy. That's what I would always reason in my head. And I would think that it's my fault. I did something. I got too mouthy. I didn't respect him enough. And remember, I was indoctrinated and living in a Christian culture and environment where it was all about obedience and having your husband as your covering, and you obey and listen and be a good wife. So that was often held over my head, that I was loud and not submissive enough. Even though I was extremely passionate about God and our lives as Christians. It's weird. Stuff like that was used against me, except for when I needed it to work for me, then it was somehow like not relevant. But again, I'm really getting lost in these emotions, even though I'm not crying. It's hard to discuss things that still aren't resolved. I have a very, very difficult time with that. And a lot of these are just like open wounds still that I'm healing. I reached a really difficult point recently, and I started taking medication to help. And my son did too. And he went from suicidal ideation on pretty much a day-to-day basis to hopeful and happy. And he's in therapy also. And it did take him a couple months for his medication to really start bringing balance to him. But he's like a different kid. And it's like, there is so much joy in being a mom and taking care of my children's needs and helping them make the right decisions for themselves. Medication is not for everyone, but in our family and with the heightened nervous system response that we've all been under for so long, that medication has been life-changing for both him and me. For me, it shut off all of my compulsions and minimized my fear response, like the shame response going on up here that impacted my body. So last year, I was actually at a neurologist being checked for MS lesions because multiple sclerosis. My sister has it, and I was having so many memory issues. Again, I think it's more of a PTSD response that I was experiencing, and the pain in my body was intense, in my hands and my legs and my feet, and the numbness and everything that I was experiencing was terrible and scary. Really, really scary. The blurry vision, the migraines were off the charts and getting really intense and way too often. I don't like my videos to go past 22 minutes. I'm a little bit past that right now, so I'm gonna try to wrap up, but I didn't have any MS lesions. And what I was experiencing was real, and my neurologist made that clear. The pain, the symptoms I was having were in fact happening, but it was from chronic stress. Long-term chronic stress. And I knew I needed to keep my therapy sessions, and I had just started medication for my ADHD too. So that was helpful. I could feel things getting better with that. I had a shoulder injury that I was healing from at that time, so I wasn't active. And then so as that healed and I became more active again, like things started to go back in line in my body. But looking at, oh God, the fatigue was actually the worst part of all of it. I forgot about that. I was like, I know there was a symptom that like really brought me in there where I was like, this is bad and I can't recover. I have been in survival mode what feels like my whole life. You don't get to try on somebody else's brain. You don't. You don't know what you've got going on in yours until you start like I'm an avid researcher and I love psychology, but it's still, even to get my ADHD diagnosis, I was like, is that real? Is it not real? What would that feel like? I took medication and I was like, oh my God, my brain isn't buzzing. What's happening right now? I feel calm. What is going on? What happened? Like, I'm not being driven by like this motor of intense thoughts, and it was crazy. I was like, oh my God, this is what normal people feel like? What? Oh no, my brain was not wired this way. And medication is helping. So cool. And then I started my SSRI. And my OCD compulsions were so obviously like turned down and some just like off. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was like it was so real. I knew it wasn't in my head, but it was like, I remember all the fear of, if this medication doesn't work anymore, how am I going to get back to this place? What about if I can't take it anymore? Or something goes wrong, or I have really bad side effects. And I remember being like, I have to have this brain. My brain needs to function like this for the rest of my life. I cannot go back. I cannot go back. And my therapist was helping me see that, you know, as I'm healing, and now knowing what calm feels like, and to live without those compulsions, I'll be able to get myself back to those places as time goes on. And that makes sense to me, but it was still really scary at first to feel the effects so strongly without any side effects, and to think like, I wish, God, if you have ADHD, complex trauma, and you go from seeing everything as broken and imperfect, and you feel shame literally looking in the mirror or around you in spaces that aren't even your own, and just like hyper focusing on everything that's wrong all the time, and just never feeling peace. And then you get to like basically put somebody else's brain on. I haven't really entered a stage of grief yet, which is kind of shocking, because I don't know if I'm all griefed out. But when I got diagnosed with ADHD, there was a long grieving process. And so going from depressive episodes, hypervigilance, and obsessive thoughts, overthinking beyond what I could even explain, compulsions that I would rationalize as necessary to feel better, when those are gone, I'm shocked that I haven't started grieving the life I could have had without all of those things. And I don't believe things are just like meant to happen or there for a reason. So like grief is intense when I do feel grief, because it doesn't feel like something just to teach me something. It feels like that really fucking sucked. And then I managed how bad that sucked, and then we move on. But yeah, I think part of me is still so busy caring about where my kids are and just being grateful. I feel grateful. Instead of grief this time, I feel grateful. I feel grateful for a medication that's giving me my life back. that's going to help me understand what healthy is so that I can get there over time on my own, so that I can come up with new healthy habits and responses, because I went from reactive to responsive. It's almost like now when I'm triggered, I have time to rationalize how it feels instead of my body responding. And it's insane. It is anything but insane, actually. That's an ironic word to use. Like, it is the opposite of insane. It is fucking amazing. I think that there's no room for grief right now because I am too busy being grateful. Grateful that I'm present with my children. Present. When I talk about how I feel or I share things or something triggers me, sometimes it's the fact that my son's nose is like his dad's. I'll go right back to a traumatic memory and I'm gone. I'm there. I can get the sippy, right? Mom, give me a sippy. She asks 10 times. Okay, I go get the sippy. Not there, but I'm getting the sippy. Unfortunately, as much as I love my kids, I can't always break through and be present. There's so much going on all the time internally. And I'll be damned. Science, medicine, it is amazing. Not insane. Insane is the opposite of what it is. It's fucking amazing. Like, the things going on in my brain are like, that it's like a damage, like things have been damaged. They've been wounded. They've been hurt. And then my brain's like, these chemicals are like, hey, you need more of this. If we do more of this, then that can open back up and you can make this connection again. And here we go back from super unhealthy, but we didn't even know it was unhealthy because it's the only thing we've ever had in our entire lives. This is the only brain we've ever been working with, right? To let's give it some things, right? Like putting antibacterial cream on your knee so it can heal, and then putting a Band-Aid on it, and now we can get to like healthy brain. Like, it's crazy. It's the opposite of crazy. It's amazing. It's sane. And to think I've been functioning like this and taking care of my family and that they love me and we're connected still, even though I've been processing so much trauma my whole fucking life in a consistent state of survival. The things that have been piled on me should have just crushed me. And even though they did a lot of damage to my brain as far as trauma goes and trauma responses, I'm thriving. I really am. Like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to know that there is a healthier place to get to. I feel so hopeful and honestly, I'm excited. I'm so excited. All right, we're way past time. 11 and a half, going on 12 minutes over what I would have liked to end this. But I really wanted to share this update. If you stuck with me, I'll have more stuff to share. I share a lot of topical things that I will be updating on. I have more time than I ever have had because my daughters are both in preschool at the same time. And so I'm getting a couple hours a day to myself. 2 hours, Monday through Thursday, all for me. The house is quiet. I can record things, including my, I can write all the things, I can process stuff, and do blogs where I don't have to worry about a child interrupting me. I'm gonna upload this, and yay! I'm a terrible editor though, so when I screw up, I probably won't really be editing because I'm not good at it. And I would much rather at least have information to give, and we'll try to keep the videos a little shorter. But this is a fresh update from, it's been a while. I wanted everyone to know that I'm well, doing very well. My rugby tattoo, 15 as one.